Hi, this is Sarit Switzer, and welcome to the It Is Taught podcast, a podcast devoted to the teachings of Rabbi Shneur Zalman of Liadi as recorded in his most famous work, the Tanya. My hope for this show is to make these teachings accessible and relatable to the average person, regardless of prior Jewish education or affiliation. The episodes follow the prescribed daily study portions and are meant to serve as practical lessons in how to live your life as your true self and develop an authentic and powerful relationship with your Creator. I have personally experienced the effects the study of this work has had on me, and I'm excited to share what I can of this knowledge with you. So please join me on this journey of learning, self-growth, and connection with your source. Hi, and welcome to the It Is Taught podcast. This is episode 235 for the 16th of Tammuz in a leap year. So one of the things I really like about the Tanya is that the Alter Rebbe is really speaking to people in a way that he hopes to be anyways very practical. It's not about, he's not expecting people to be tzaddikim. He understands that people are not perfect, nor are we meant to be perfect. That's not what life is about. Life is about constantly trying to improve yourself, trying to get closer to God to the best of your abilities, using the tools that you were born with, using the tools, the faculties of your mind and your heart that God gave you. So everything that the Alter Rebbe tells us to do, all of the advice he gives us in these books of the Tanya, is really meant to be practical. It's meant to be things that we're capable of doing. So this came up in the past few episodes where we've been discussing the concept of fasting, where the Alter Rebbe really spelled it out. This whole idea about how we see that there are many fasts that are prescribed by the sages, and the Arizal really made it into like a science, like really broke it down and said, like, if a person commits this type of sin, these are the prescribed amounts of fast that should be undertaken in order to restore them into good graces. And again, just to mention, I know I mentioned this before, I'll mention it here again. Fasting is not tshuva. Fasting is a gift that we give to God after doing tshuva as a way to kind of like appease God and restore our relationship with God similar to the analogy I gave of a husband bringing flowers to his wife after apologizing, after making commitments to remedy and be better, remedy himself and not do whatever it was that he was doing before to make her angry. And so, okay, so fasting, so we know that there are these prescribed fasts that are given by the sages, by the Arizal and stuff like that. But as we spoke about yesterday, it's not really practical. It sounds like when you start to calculate the number of fasts that are prescribed for different sins, and then it's like every time you do a sin, God forbid, you're supposed to do that set number of fasts, like it becomes ridiculous. It's like, you can't live. You'd basically be fasting your entire life. So he gave the example of emission of seed, of wasted seed for a man, and how there's 84 fasts that are prescribed for that. And so then every time this happens to a man, he would have to undergo 84 fasts. Like that's a lot of fasts if for that kind of sin, right? So yesterday, the Alter Rebbe explained to us that the way that we can kind of work around this is to understand that really you only have to do this 3 times. You would only have to undergo the prescribed number of fasts for a total of 3 times, even if you engaged in the sin a multiple of times, because there's something about the number 3 that's really like causes the fast to take effect in this like really permeable way. Like 3 kind of makes something into like an entity, into something real. So just like if a person engages in a certain activity 3 times, like a sin, for example, God forbid, this makes the sin kind of like permeate the heavens, kind of like permeate their relationship with God in this kind of entrenched way. So too, the remedy for that is really 3 times. So it's like you would engage in the prescribed number of fasts 3 times. So it would be like, let's say in the case of wasted seed, so you'd have 84 fasts, and so 84 times 3 would be 252 fasts in total. And then we concluded yesterday and we talked about the idea of how even that number of fasts, so that's still a lot of fasts, right, is that we don't actually have to focus on that in our generation, because like when we were talking about fasting, this really was more appropriate for previous generations who were more robust physically than we were. And our generation is really considered to be a weaker generation. And even back then, the Alter Rebbe said it wasn't everybody that engaged in these fasts. It was only the certain type of people, select people who did have the mental and physical capacity to do this. So it's not something we need to be worried about today. And instead, a good substitution for fasting so much is to give charity, is to give our money, because our money is, in a sense, like our flesh, as we'll learn about this a bit later in this section of the Tanya as well. Okay, but so now today, what we're going to just take a little bit of a return to this idea of fasting and talk about, okay, how could a person actually practically do fasting? Let's say they don't want to do that substitute. They don't want to just like say, oh, I'm too weak to fast, so I'll just give charity instead. Let's say they really, really want to serve God in this like more like pristine kind of manner, and they do want to engage in fasting. Is there a way that they can do this that is sustainable, that is like, that can actually be practical for them and won't cause them to faint or whatever? And so today, the Alter Rebbe really tell us that yes, there is a way to do this, that what you can actually do is that instead of fasting in this like consecutive manner, like again, he gives that example of the wasted seed fast. So let's use that number of the 252 number of fasts. So instead of having to like just like fast, for pretty much the majority of the year, just like that, you can break the fasts up. And what you can do is you can actually wait until the winter months when the days are shorter, so that your fast days will be shorter, and you can even fast in such a way where you break it up. So it might take you a certain number of years to complete all of the fasting, but eventually during your lifetime, you will have completed all of these fasts. And then the Alter Rebbe even actually gives another little get out of jail free card, is that what a person can do is they can break it up even further. So they can say like, okay, so they're going to be fasting 84 fasts 3 times. So for the first round of those 84 fasts, so yeah, they can fast a full 84 days. But again, they can do this during the winter months, and they can do it over a series of years. So it can be like every winter, they pick a certain amount of time of those days, those shorter days of the winter months that they're going to fast. And then for the remaining 2 rounds of the 84 fast, the Alter Rebbe says you can actually even break it up further, where you can just fast until noontime, and that can be counted as a half of a fast. So if you do that, then every 2 half days are considered to be 1 full day of fasting. So it's going to cause it to drag out even further, but this is a way, and this is a recommended way that the Alter Rebbe gives for somebody who really, really wants to like fulfill this idea of fasting in its most pristine way. This is a very practical way that they can do it. And he says that it's a good thing to do, like once in your life, even if it takes you many years to do it, it's a good thing to do. So I think the biggest takeaway from this is really the idea that, well, on the one hand, the Alter Rebbe is really making the Tanya really livable to us and making these principles really livable to us. And we saw that especially yesterday, where he said, you can give money to charity. You don't have to actually fast so many fasts and all of that kind of thing. On the other hand, he's not letting us off the hook that easily. And he's kind of telling us that like we should, on the other hand, push ourselves to our limits to the best of our ability, even if it takes us a long time to do it, even if it takes us our entire lives and we prolong it over a series of years. So with that intro being said, I think we should just get into the text today and see how the Alter Rebbe explains this. So for context, we are still in Iggeres HaTeshuva, the middle of chapter 3, and the Alter Rebbe begins and he says, nevertheless, anybody who is a Baal Nefesh, so that's like a man of spirit, who wants to be close to God, to rectify his soul, to return it to God with the best form of tshuva, like the tshuva mina muvchal, it's called, like the choicest type of tshuva, then he should be stringent upon himself to fulfill, nevertheless, at least once in his entire life, the number of fasts for every sin from these more severe sins that are that are liable for death, even if it's liable for death by the hands of heaven above. So basically, so just again to explain that, then the Alter Rebbe is saying that if somebody so fasting is not tshuva. I want to make that clear. So tshuva is just repenting. It's resolving to not do the negative behavior anymore in the future and stop doing it. But then fasting is a good way to, after doing that tshuva, as a nice accessory to tshuva, to kind of like restore your good graces to God as a kind of gift to God. And so here the Alter Rebbe is saying is that for certain sins that are very severe, like there are different gradations of sins. So some sins that fall into the category of somebody of where the punishment for committing those sins causes a person to be liable for the death penalty, whether by the hand of the court or by the hand of God. So these are obviously like very severe sins. So it's good to fast for these sins to in order to really rectify your soul to its proper place, and you can do this over the course of your life. You should do it at least once in your life. And so what's an example of this kind of sin that the Alter Rebbe gives? He says, for example, wasting of seed. So the wasting of seed is 84 sins. That's the prescribed number of fasts. And so he says that a person should undergo these 84 fasts at least once in his entire life, and he can delay this for the days that are shorter, like the winter months. And so he can fast, like, let's say for 10 days or even less than this for one winter. And then he can continue to do this, like then he can delay it again for another year and another year, so that let's say he completes the entire 84 days in 9 or more years, according to his stamina, right? So it's like, let's say I'm going to do a quick calculation here. So it's like, let's say if you do 84 divided by 9, so that's like a little bit over 9 years. So yeah, so you can take 9-10 years to complete these fasts if you pick 10 days throughout the year during the short winter months to fast. And then in brackets, the Alter Rebbe says in here, I'm going to make it even easier for you. He says the person can also eat a little bit about 3 hours before sunrise. So, and it would still be considered a fast. So it's like the fast would only begin right at sunrise. And so then it's like you don't have to torture yourself so much. So it's really a very short fast. You eat right before sunrise, and then you fast for the remainder of the day until it becomes dark. And that's considered to be a good fast. And then if a person wants to complete the 3 times 84, which is 252 fasts, then they can do this by further breaking up the remaining fasts. So it's like, okay, they got rid of the 84 fasts by breaking it up into different days over the course of the year. Now for the 2 other rounds of the 84 fasts, so that would be 84 times 2. So for the 168 remaining fasts, what they can do is they can break those up into 2. For each fast, you break it up into half fast. So that would be, it's actually, you would be doing like 84 times 4 in this case. So it'd be 336 half fasts, which is the equivalent of 168 full fasts, which is 84 times 2. So this, according to the Talmud Yerushalmi, and the source for that is in Nedarim 8:1 of the Talmud Yerushalmi. So this is also considered a fast, according to the Talmud Yerushalmi, that 2 half days are considered like 1 day in this regard. And so all of this is talking about these like very severe types of sins that a person would be engaged in, like sins of idolatry, or even wasting of seed is in that category. Things that are liable for the death penalty, either by hands of heaven or by the court. But the Alter Rebbe says this applies to other more minor sins as well. And then he ends off with this idea that every heart knows its own anguish and desires its vindication. So meaning that we want to be ultimately vindicated. We want to absolve ourselves of any blemish at all. So even after doing tshuva, after we've done the tshuva, we've been forgiven, we have this desire to come back into the good graces of God and to just really cleanse ourselves of any remnant of it. And that can be accomplished through fasting. So this is something that we can do at some point in our lives, at least once. So that's it for today, and we're going to continue tomorrow with this chapter, and I will speak to you then. Thanks for listening to the It Is Taught podcast, hosted by Sarit Switzer. This podcast is dedicated in loving memory of my maternal grandfather, Avraham Yitzchak ben Binyamin HaKohen of blessed memory. Music by Shoshana. If you enjoyed this episode and would like to support the show, please share it with others and subscribe on YouTube, Apple iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. And make sure to leave us a 5-star review. To find out more about the It Is Taught project, including more information on my soon-to-be published book, please visit our website, itistaught.com. To catch the latest from me, follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Looking forward to speaking with you tomorrow, and until then, have a great day.